Thank you for coming back. Okay, so hello. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. But I have a short presentation for you today about microschools and pandemic pods. And let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so if you are a mom, if you're in any mom groups right now, anywhere in the country, this is one of the hot topics. In a lot of mom groups, microschools and pandemic pods, and I'll talk about what these are. Now, one of the things, a lot of articles and division has been going around because they said these can only be attainable for wealthy or privileged parents. And I just want to say that that is not true. And we're going to speak about this today. Now, this will have to be done with people in your community. So sometimes kids can't interact with kids outside of your community, but we are in the middle of a pandemic right now. So that's something that'll just have to happen. So I'll tell you more about how to create these microschools or pandemic pods to help meet your children's needs, even if you don't have a high income or anything like that to pay a teacher a full salary. So let's get started. And if you have any questions, you can always drop them in chat. And my name is Maisha Jahan. And for a long time now, I've been talking about microschools or schooling pods as the way of the future. I've worked in education. I've worked in charter schools, public schools, in a lot of different areas. And I noticed that, especially for middle class parents, lower middle class, mid-middle class parents, schools, I don't think were sufficient. The school education and curriculum weren't sufficient for maybe children's needs, basically. So I knew that from an early time that in the early years, I want to homeschool my kids or create a learning pod. Basically, I get a group of 5 or 6 kids in the community, and I'm their teacher and guide them through a curriculum. That's something that I've always wanted to do, and something that I see as the way of the future, especially for middle class, lower middle class parents. And I'll talk about that a little bit today. And this can be done like any income level, and I'll talk about that. So Malcolm X, education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. We discussed continually throughout this summit that you are your child's first teacher. You are your child's most important teacher. So the fact that they remain educated and they remain learning throughout this time is very, very important, and it is the passport to their success. Education is the great equalizer, right? I went to school with a lot of, there's still some inequity, but I went to school with a lot of high income individuals. I went to school with a lot of kids from a lot of different backgrounds. I went to school with a lot of kids from low income neighborhoods or inner cities and extreme poverty. And a lot of those kids who came from extreme poverty, they're doctors, they're lawyers, living in the neighborhoods with upper middle class and middle class students. Like, they were able to change the trajectory of their lives and their children's lives by getting access to education. I know we live in a time where there's online education, there's internet superstars, there's social media influencers, but education is still the number one way for students to move social classes or have social mobility through classes. Okay, so don't get it twisted. The likelihood of your child becoming a millionaire rapper is possible. The possibility of your child becoming a millionaire athlete is possible, but percentage wise, education is still the top number one way to move up financially and improve your financial situation. What is microschooling? What are the academic or pandemic pods? So microschooling is an independent learning institution. They are small private institutions where students are empowered to personalize their own educations and are held accountable for their own progress. Often described as outsourced homeschooling, they are free from the bureaucracy of standardized exams, mandatory curriculum that defines today's public school system, and microschools tend to be efficiently run and student engagement is remarkably high. I mean, you got a smaller classroom. It's easier to engage students more. It's easier for them to learn. It's easier to determine when students are falling behind or not understanding something, right? Also, a lot of microschools are parent run and parent organized, and parents can come together and create their own set of rules or curriculum that best fit the needs of their students. What are pandemic pods? Pandemic pods are a microschool that is created to meet the educative challenges that are caused by this current pandemic. A few families agree to socially distance together to reduce the amount of contact with people, but meet the educational needs and social and emotional needs of their children. Media has been mentioning that these solutions are only for the rich, but there are ways that parents with fewer resources can make sure that their children's needs are met. So basically, in the South especially, even in the North here, a lot of schools are reopening and a lot of parents don't want to send their children. I know there are a lot of parents that have to, but if they don't have to, a lot of parents want to come up with alternative options. Virtual school just doesn't necessarily meet all the needs of especially younger kids. So these pandemic pods give children a way to socialize and interact with each other and meet those needs, as well as have personalized, individualized instruction. You don't have to come up with your own curriculum. You can use the curriculum that your school gives you, right? And then create these pandemic pods, have a tutor or a grad student or something like that. Make sure that the students are staying on task. So that's one way you can do it. So 3 aspects of pandemic pods: teachers, curriculum, and location, okay? Oh, I'm going the wrong way. So hiring teachers. So I just want to read this excerpt from a New York Times article. But basically, instead of hiring teachers, some families are hoping to share the teaching among the parents. A mother of 8-year-old and 11-year-old who lives in New York is hoping to create a pod with 3 other families this fall that will rotate houses. One of the dads, who owns a tech company, will teach coding, while Phillips, who's an editor, will teach reading and writing. The parents will ideally teach whatever they're good at or know about or care about, Phillips said, and doing so expose the kids to a lot of different subjects. And what makes this excellent, because they're being taught by professionals, they'll get real life exposure, not just from an academic standpoint, but a real life standpoint of how people are using this in the real world. So this is really awesome, a really awesome way to do it. And the parents aren't coming out of pocket to hire a teacher. They're just sharing the responsibilities. If we're working from home, maybe I can schedule my meetings for 3 days a week where I can work with the kids. And remember, you don't have to set up a full day of curriculum for your children. They don't need that. They don't need 9 to 3 or anything like that. 2 to 3 hours a day of curriculum is enough for students. In school, they have lunch, they're moving around, they're teaching 30 kids. So time is slower, right? So you don't have to fill up all that time in these whole schools. Some families are pulling their kids out of the school for these learning pods, while others are using pods as a supplement to their school's virtual online curriculum. Ideally, from our perspective, it would be complementary rather than a replacement, said Adam Davis, a pediatrician in San Francisco who's hoping to create a learning pod with a teacher or college-age helper for his second grader in the kindergarten in the fall. So this is from a New York Times article, and I share this resource in the link in the recap. So how to hire teachers, like if I want to hire teachers or a supplement. An option is to hire teachers who are opting out of going back into the classroom. Put an ad on a job board. Look in parenting and Facebook groups. Teachers are advertising like crazy for this service. They don't want to go to school. If I can only teach 3 families, I can limit my contact. I'd rather do that. Look in homeschooling pod Facebook groups. Make a list what you're looking for in a teacher and set a budget and share with families what their budget contribution or time contribution would be, right? So that's one way you could do it. So if you are to hire a teacher, if you aren't hiring a teacher and parents are rotating responsibilities, you still want to make sure that it's clearly outlined what either parent's responsibility are, if they need supplies, anything like that. So curriculum. There are many options for curriculum. Decide what kind of learning paradigm that you want your child to have. So there's a Montessori paradigm. There's a Catholic or Christian school paradigm. There is the public school paradigm. You can find free virtual school online. There's a free Catholic school online, parish.academy. So that's where you can get a free Catholic school curriculum if you want to make sure you follow that paradigm. You can use resources like Khan Academy and Google Classroom to set up the curriculum. And there's even supplemental learning and quizzes in both of those places. Khan Academy has something for just about every age group. You can set up your whole school through there. You can use paid teachers to find paid resources for worksheets. The worksheets are going to be better than what you will find for free. And resources are endless. And then Pinterest. Pinterest has a lot of worksheets for kids of every age group. You just search on Pinterest for what you're looking for. So location. Where are we going to hold these pods? Where are we going to have these pods? Garage space or an extra space in the house. You can rotate spaces between families, or you can create outdoor locations. What's cool about outdoor locations? So, especially at summertime, earlier in the school year time, the weather's still nice outside, that kids can spread out and move around. It's easier to socially distance. They can breathe in fresh air. And then also, I think honestly, just connecting with nature is just a better way for students to learn. But if you have an extra space in your house, you can clear out that space. You want to put a chalkboard or a whiteboard or put chairs together, or make sure there's a big table where students can gather around. Garage. A lot of people are cleaning out their garages and using them as learning environments, putting whiteboards on the walls, things like that to help guide their kids' learning. So that is another option. Okay, so I hope that gave you a little bit of insight into how to set up a micro school, how to set up a pod. Google or search on Facebook and type in your town or your city and micro school or pandemic pod, and I guarantee a Facebook group will come up, and you can join that Facebook group, and you can find parents that live close to you, and then I would set up a Zoom meeting, and somebody of course is going to have to take charge, and then you talk about what you want for your kids and how you want to direct that education, what you want them to learn. What is your budget? Do you have a budget? Who can teach what each parent gifts or skills are, and look for different tutoring companies or tutor. You can do it that way. So these are some ways that you can make it easy for you. Now, I'm willing to be a teacher if there is a family in the south suburbs of Chicago that's looking for someone to teach math or science. I'd be willing to do that. And I can even help facilitate matching you with other teachers or other instructors or other tutors. If you're looking for that, you can reach out to me at mieshajihan@gmail.com, and I will help facilitate matching you with the teacher who fits your needs, right? And tomorrow we're going to speak more about virtual options. This is especially for high schoolers, virtual tutoring options or tutoring support. High schoolers are better at self-directed and being self-directed and may not need as much like in-person instruction as the little kids do, but how to support their education or virtual learning. That's what we'll talk about tomorrow. And if you have any questions, you can still leave them under this video and I will go back and answer any questions you have. I hope you've learned a lot. I hope this is helpful. I hope this gave you a lot of insight, and just thank you. Thank you, and good night.